Hey, Ross, how you doing?
Hey,
I got yoga shamed.
I know. You don't have their I saw. You're too loud for them.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It's like and then I thought, well, it's Scorpio, drawing boundaries. It's Gemini, they're in their head, so I'll just take it on the chin, like, and I walked in and said, I even apologized. I go, I'm really sorry for making noise. Now you're over time, but I'm really sorry for making noise. And they're like, well, you should be.
Can't interrupt their. Were they in Savasana?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they were 5 minutes over. So their Savasana was in the time that I'm supposed to be broadcasting. That's why we were so late.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Cool. How's Costa Rica?
Costa Rica is beautiful, man. I mean Mexico's nice, but Costa Rica is just, it's just another level. It's been a long time since I've been right at the equatorial zone, and of course the monkeys here. The fruit is even fresher. It's hard to describe. It's because we get really fresh produce in Mexico, but down here it's like over the top fresh.
Yeah, yeah. It's raining there all the time. Is why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the rain showers are great. You just come on, they go away.
Right.
Yeah,
Because the waters that's coming down in the rain is so warm too.
yeah, yeah. The water's warm, and that's Mexico. You still got, like, even our pool in Mexico, the water's kind of cold, and the ocean is kind of warm, so you're always in between. Here, everything's the same temperature.
Yeah. The temperature of a human being.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So we're still getting lots of feedback. You had such a great session on Monday. People really enjoyed it.
Amazing. Yeah. Chris was great too. So,
Yeah, I heard you
um,
guys had a good talk. I gotta talk with him this afternoon. I haven't listened to that one. I'm gonna listen to it later on today.
yeah, 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 he was great. I learned a lot. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the guy. Listen, he was on track to be the biggest astrologer on the planet, and then because he was in Hollywood in television, and he was like reading for Shirley MacLaine and all the big celebrities and that, and then he just said something's wrong with this. He says, they keep coming back to me, but they're not taking anything, right? And so that's when he decided to create the app with the step system. And then that app is basically, it's a coach to train people not only on astrology, but to train them how to start thinking about adding astrology into their life. Because lots of people know astrology, but they don't use it. I mean, they know it, they know everything, but throughout the day, they're not thinking or acting in the astrological way. And he gets 7 messages a day, every single day, and those messages are like today. There's going to be some sort of breakthrough for me, and I had one today. I had one on the chakras, just the way that we think about chakras. And I had this breakthrough on it, and I look at my message. Hey, there's a breakthrough coming today. And I'm like, oh. So it's actually neat. You know how we think of chakras being the color around like this, right? And that's kind of like fascia. Because you think of fascia, we look at it very two-dimensionally, like it's a coating around a muscle. We
yeah,
look at it two-dimensionally, but that's not how it works. It's this neural network that goes through the muscles. It goes through the organs. Fascia is a part of muscle tissue. It's a part of the organ tissue. It's part of everything. If you haven't looked at it, look at this video called "Unwinding the Heart," and it's by a famous cardiologist, and he unravels the heart.
yeah,
And
like
here,
this, right here.
yeah, here I'll show you. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, but you can go ahead and show everybody.
Okay, so what he does is he takes it like this, and he says, well, if you ravel up the heart like this, and you just keep twisting it, a piece of towel, eventually it looks like this, which is the exact shape of a heart. And and this is a cardiologist doing a dissection. And then he says, so the heart is a centrifuge, it's a spinner. It's not really a pump. It actually spins the blood. And then he unravels it. When he unravels it, you can see the layer by layer of muscle and fascia, which is the first time ever in history that I know of anybody that actually proved the way that my theory of the human body. is that we have, because we're full of these layers of fascia, and some of it spins up here for a liver, and a gallbladder spins up here. And as it spins, it has every other layer of fascia. So every organ is a part of every layer of fascia is a part of every organ. That's why the organs communicate so well. And what's interesting is the organs have the highest density of olfactory nerve cells of any other part of the body. It's like they have their own intranet. You know, like olfactory nerves are like you smell, you taste, you hear. So that's why when we hear things and smell things, they have such a rich sensory processing, because they actually are dominant in the organs, which are our emotions. And our emotions are how we remember things and how we process.
The emotions are what enables memory, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I say this all the time, is that the human body is just a sophisticated carrying case for 10 organs.
So hold up. So you're saying that those organs where the chakras are wound up like that, like a vortex.
Yeah.
So what was the breakthrough on how a chakra is shaped?
So just like a muscle, we see a muscle in a very linear fashion. So it's hard for us to imagine that there's all this complexity of fascia gel that the muscles sit in. Because when the body's dehydrated, the fascia is like phyllo pastry. And all the goodness is all the flow of collagen and fluids through the fascia. But if it gets stressed out, it becomes a pie crust. And and so when we look at chakra, we look at red, we look at orange, we look at yellow, we look at green, we look at blue, we look at purple, and we look at white. So we look at them in this way, stacked.
Circles.
And I agree that there is a portal into the body in each one of those levels. But the way I've always imagined it is is that the first chakra is red, root. That's closest to the body. So it's like a shell around me. And then over the top of that is orange. Then there's yellow. Then there's green. Then there's blue. Then there's purple. Then there's white. And then if you think about it, because I kept saying there's different layers of fascia. Like one of the things when I was intuiting fascial maneuvers, I kept asking, how many layers of fascia is there? And I kept getting this answer back from the universe saying, infinite. And I'm like, it can't be infinite. It's finite. Like there's a finite piece here. Well, the fascia is our entropic field. So, you know, like we think we have an aura, but that's technically not true. There's a human experience that has all this information. It's a big ball of energy. And only part of it we can see, which is the most dense part of that energy. So basically, the human being that we see is the most dense part of the human experience. So we're the dense part. We're not the smart part.
Right.
So if you
dense and slow,
think about that coming in from layers of complexity down, right? Well, then as you hit the body itself, closer to the body, those layers would be white. Then they would be purple. Then they would be green, blue, green, yellow, and then finally red. Literally touching the body. And if you think about a cell, we look at it, the body from the outside, we put a gun on it. We can see infrared. That's the lowest spectrum. It's the red part of us, like the body's biophotonic. So actually, that's how the chakras work. They work like this, but we can access them through a portal. That's what like network spinal analysis or spinal energetics from Dr. Sarah in Australia. That's how it works. Is that you have portals in. But if I think about it as a Russian doll with eggs, that makes more sense to me. Now I can work with it better.
I mean, even in the East, they're flowers. They're associated with flowers, and flowers are more like what you're talking about. They open up, and there's a whole world, you know, in each one. And it's not just simply, like you said, a two-dimensional circle coming off of the organs. and then it's all interconnected. And it has to be, because there's all the chakras in every cell of our body. It doesn't just stay at the level of our chakras where they're traditionally located.
So think about this. What is thinking? Did I just go? Did I just blur out on you?
Huh?
Did I blur out on you?
No, you're good.
Okay. So what is thinking? Okay. So we have this intuition, and we have this field around us, which has all of our information, everything about every lifetime, everything about everything we need to know. It's connected to everybody we're connected to. And then we have this DNA that's a triple helix, which has really got telomeres on the ends, which are antennas. So we're built like a human antenna. And so if everything I need to know is already in this field, then what is thinking? Thinking is the space and time in which it takes me to get it from the field into my perception, into my brain to process it for a realization. So it's like when I go on a web page and the web page isn't working, the circle goes boom, 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 boom. That's thinking. That's showing you how slow it is. So thinking is actually showing us how thick and dense we are, because the information is already there. What are we thinking about? It's how long it takes for us to process. So people say, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I'm like, whoa, man, that shows how dense you really are.
And that's why the older you get, the more you think.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, you are just straight processing everything.
Right. Yeah. And this is why, in ancient cultures, they considered the babies, like in indigenous cultures, they considered the babies, the moms, would treat them as little mamas, because they were coming in to the world to take care of them. So they would train the babies, because the babies had all of the influence from the other side. So they would consider them wise. And then they would consider, as we got older, not so wise as we move farther from the truth. I mean, that's such a flip in the way that we treat our world, right? We treat kids as kind of fragile and intelligent, and technically, babies, they're not fragile. They're the least. They're the most. They're the strongest. You can virtually not hurt a baby. I mean, they're very flexible. You can't. Their bones don't want to break. They have more silica. And then as we get older, the silica drops and we get more calcium. We get calcified, which is harder. So we actually get harder as we get older, typically. And so the truth is, as they come, I know it's funny too, because you know that old saying, they wear diapers coming into this world and they wear it on the way out. And my mom, before she passed, that's what she did. For the last 6 months, she went all the way down to diapers.
Right.
And then she...
Yeah. And those cultures for sure just knew how to talk to them and get the symbols or the communication out of the babies that they needed. We just ignore the fact that they're connected to the other realms, but they are. And that there's countless people that I know that have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds that say that they're talking about other lifetimes, other planets. And we just have to learn to recognize, just like the astrology, like how do we use this information and integrate it into our life?
Yeah.
And how do we use these babies as connected, connected to source extensions of ourself, because that's essentially what it is. It's what they are. And same thing with when you're...
That's why little Maxine... Have you met Maxine?
Who's...
Aisha's daughter, Maxine.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
She just, a couple of years ago, it's been slowly going away, but she would talk like, yeah, I know you from another place. When did you know me? Well, when we were clouds, and she would talk like that, but she was dead serious. It would be, now it's interspersed amongst supposedly conscious conversation. But she would say, yeah, we were on this planet. We were like this. And for a child who's in like a child who's like 5 or 6 years old, where do they get that information from? They're using precise. They were using precise things. They're telling us where. She was telling us where it was in the stars.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that it has to do with their cranium is open when
Yeah.
you're younger, and you still have the soft spot, but then that starts to close eventually. So
Checking for mine to make. Who knows?
the fontanelles are still open, yeah. But that starts to close, and then apparently most of us don't have access anymore. And we get taught not to talk like that as well, and not to remember that, and that's not real. But my sister had the same thing. It was her son was talking about the other place, and he meant the other planet, the other home.
You're going. Yeah, your signal, I think, is. I'm not sure if it's me or you, but the signal is going on a little bit. Can someone in the comments say, are they getting the same thing me? It could be just me receiving it. Is that possible? You got full service there, right?
Yeah, the same as usual.
But I'm starting. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it says you're fuzzy. Okay. Is there any possibility? Do you have good cell signal where you're at too? If you took off Wi-Fi?
Cell signal's worse.
Okay.
I'm blurry. Should I log off and log back on?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's log off, log back on. Okay, Rob's gonna come back in and see if we can get a better one. Hey Mark, how you doing? Hey Neelam 786. Go Edmonton. Okay, let's do this again. Somebody said both. Okay.
Maybe I need to.
Somebody started tapping their soft spots as opening up their ears. Yeah, sprained ankle maneuvers. Go to the lower reset and barefoot sprinter routine. You got them all there on our website. Yeah, you actually look clearer now.
All right. I just stood up. Maybe my phone needs to be this high.
Yeah. Maybe you are the signal.
Yeah. Somebody asked where the soft spot is. And that's where a lot of cultures and that's where I usually wear my top bun is over the anterior fontanelle, which is where one of the soft spots are. That's when the cranium's more than one bone, that's what they are. They start to fuse together. And then there's these spots. In yogic technology, it's called the solar center for men and women. There's a solar center for men is right on the top of the head, and then for women there's two of them. One's on the corner, and then one's on the back, and that's where people, like the heart, that's where people weave or put their ponytail, their hair, because the hairs are also pulling in the cosmic and solar energy in through those little tight breaks in the cranium. But children, they're wide open in those areas.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too, is I've always looked at questions like, outside of hormones, why are men hairier than women, and why do they have hair on certain areas? Like, there's not all even. Like, they'll have it sometimes down the outside of the leg. Well, it's the same reason I got my answer when we were in Mayakan, where all the mosquito bites would be right down the outside or right on the inside or right up here, because those are meridians. So the hair is like an extra signal to that meridian. So it's like that meridian, the way I interpret it, is being used more heavy, for more signal. It needs more signal, more connectivity. Because that's what the hair technically does. It's bringing a signal down. It's keratin. It's the same as your fascia. It's intense.
Right. There's a little bit of copper in there too.
Yeah.
Which is what wires are made out of.
Yeah, you know, copper is our electricity.
Right. So, so that's what hair is, if anyone was wondering.
So so this is a good thing. So you grew your hair for how many years?
I want to say it's about 7 right now.
So have you ever considered cutting it off, or is that a thought process, or are you
So
just gonna keep going?
it's beginning to especially be right now. It's down below my butt, but right now it's getting to the point where it's so heavy that it hurts to have it up. It even just hurts to be on my head. Like just in general, it's hurting all day long. And I feel like it's getting to a detriment because it's so heavy that I feel like it might even be blocking or weighing down the blood flow coming into my scalp, which then might lead to hair loss.
Well,
So,
it's weight. You see these Rastafarians with the hair up there. You know that weighs 10, 12, 15 pounds sometimes. Like it's a lot of weight. And if anybody here you want to try it, go take a 5 pound, just a 5 pound weight, strap it to your head and wear it for half a day and see what happens to your body. You'll be achy in your feet, you'll be achy in your shoulders, your neck, your elbows, everything.
yeah. I mean, it's always had a little bit of a factor of like inconvenience, but now it's like pain. So my scalp's in pain. So I'm getting a little bit of signal to cut it. I'm not sure when that's going to happen,
Oh,
but
we
I'm
we
not as
got to
fast
we got to
as
do this live somewhere, dude.
it.
You know, but it makes sense that it's gonna. You know, if it happened, it makes sense that it's coming on the seventh year,
Hmm.
because that's every cell in the body rejuvenates itself. Like some cells are in days, some are weeks, some are months, some are years, but every cell in the body rejuvenates itself every 7 years. That's why and so our brain, we think, but we actually don't think. What we do is we interpret the thoughts of ourselves, and our cells are all through the body. So each cell is autonomous by itself, but each cell gives up its autonomy to beat to a central drum, and that's our narrative. And every cell in the body changes every 7 years. This is why the Age of Aquarius started in 2013, but 7 years, 2020 is when it started really feeling like the Age of Aquarius, because the Age of Aquarius is all things are revealed, nothing is hidden. You can't hide behind it. The veil is lifted. It's a sense of I no longer want to do what's not serving me. It's a sense of fairness, and you see it happening right now in the world. It started happening in 2020, and that's when the human perceives a new reality, but it graduates, so it's slow because as each cell dies, that old cell dies away with the memories of it, and the new cell comes in. That's why as human beings we experience the 7 year itch in a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, this is real stuff. This is like astrology. This is like working with the body. That's also the 7 chakras, the 7 days of the week, right? It's all related in there in sevens. I didn't think about that in regards to my hair though. But
Well, see, you're getting to the point where, like you said, it's coming to a full life cycle. So you've got an entire 7 year perception cycle that has contributed to your overall understanding of the world. But when you cut the hair, you're going to shed the memory to be somebody new. That's why the rituals often were to cut and then to have something new. And we had Jennifer, who is one of our lifestyle artists and coaches, she was going through a lot of pain in her life. She's a Scorpio, and she just said she had like long blonde hair. She's like, I'm shaving it. She shaved it. She did it live. Her first live ever. She shaved her hair, and so I see her in the meetings now, and she's got a shaved head, and I'm like, I have a lot of respect for what she did because she wanted so badly to change her life that she was working on all the stuff that she was leaving behind, and she's like, there's still some of it left here, so she just took it off.
that's yeah, I'm remembering back 7 years ago. It was 7 years ago. I was closing down my gyms over the next few months. And then that's after I closed down my gyms, I had the thought, I'm not going to cut my hair again. And so that thought was coming up in like March, would be exactly 7 years. But I wasn't cutting my hair a little bit of months before that. But yeah, 7 years ago is when I was basically ending my old life. So it's been 7 years of the current process.
So look at somebody says, as an indigenous person, we cut our hair when we grieve, not only people, but ourselves too. And so what is grieving? Grieving is letting go of a past to have a new future. That's what grieving technically is. We think of it very mechanically human, but it's because when grieving is usually associated with death of something. So that's transition. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's somebody who was just saying this as an indigenous person.
Yeah, you're breaking up with either another person or yourself, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah, you're leaving yourself, you're grieving the old you. You're like, okay, I'm done.
That's even what Chris Witecki said was going to happen astrologically for myself personally. Is that
I sent him your chart.
Yeah. He said there I'm going to release basically being mediocre and step into like a greater version.
Your awesomeness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that. You can see the transition because the things that you've done over the last 7 years is you've actually said, I'm going to commit to this. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I'm committing to something. And very few people in this world stand for anything anymore. They float around, they do what people do, they have some sort of goal or purpose. But that goal or purpose doesn't mean that I commit to or stand to anything, because purpose changes with circumstance. But my internal belief system is what you were changing. I love Jay when Jay was, he's like, he kept asking you like 10 different ways when we were in my con. So what has it taught you? What is the inference of growing your hair? He was asking, I watched him, kept asking you because he was trying to figure out he's learned. He's saying, I can learn this lesson from him. I don't necessarily have to grow my hair for 7 years.
Jason's funny.
Oh, that's what he does, man. He can learn from other people in this amazing way. Like, he's taken my 30 years worth of business experience and he's collapsed it into 3 years. Like, he's learned everything almost that I did in 30 years in 3 years with experience.
And then he's gonna do he's like a sponge. That's really cool. That's a really cool skill. And that's cool you can see that in him.
He's the I've tried to find people to work with, to mentor, basically to pass my experience on so that they can take it further my whole life. And whether it's been in business or it's been in clinics, and what happens invariably is personal motivation, like selfishness or greed in the thought process, not necessarily money, but personal motivation to prove that they're better or different comes up at some point. And when that comes up, there becomes a chasm or a parting of the ways. There hasn't, and I can always tell, like I could tell even with, I learned so much from Joseph, who I started Human Garage with. And we agreed never to name the therapy at Human Garage. And the reason I didn't want to name the therapy is because once the therapy is named, I watched so many other people fall into ego, and then their lives start disrupting. And we were about 2015, so we're, I guess, about probably, and he worked at Rubenstein Center, so that's probably about 4 years. And he comes up to me right about the time we're going to train everybody, and he goes, I think it's time we name the therapy. And I'm like, I thought this time it worked, right? And the reason why is because you name it because you want to own it. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem, is the ownership of it. And this is why when fascial maneuvers is intellectual property free, anybody can use it. We have people all around the world building it into school systems, into college systems, into programs. We have people doing 28-day resets on our platform, coaching people through it. So they make money coaching people through a free service. And people are gladly willing to do that. And that's what we want. I wasn't mature enough at the time to not name it, to not own it. That's why when Jason came along, he's like, I waited for him. He said, this has to be free. The education, the fashion maneuvers are free, but the education has to be free. And I said, okay, great. Let's do it. How do we do it? And I'm like, I'm all on board. But that was where I knew that he was different.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to see. There's a synergy between you guys that's amazing to watch as well. And Jason's so proficient, and it's hard to realize like how that he's way younger than he really is.
I sometimes because I talk to him for like fatherly advice sometimes, and then I'm like, well, you're the same age as my son. It's a trip. It is. But you know what we have is we get this girl. She uses numbers. She's like a savant. She uses numbers and tells you what planet you're from and what your primary focus is here, and his is creation. And so as long as he's creating, he's got all the energy. As soon as he stops creating, he gets stale really fast. So, and you know, and mine is my primary one is wisdom, and the second one is communication or voice, and before she even told me, she reads everything, tells you what planet you're from and all this, and I'm like, it is the coolest experience for all. She does it for corporations. She charges corporations like $100,000 to do this for their executive teams and stuff like this, and so she's a friend of Aisha's, and she read it with ours, and I was actually not shocked with what mine said, but it was really confirmative, because then now I can see that I've had those years, and I can see when he's creating, like he created the 28-day reset, he created the lifestyle artist program. I just show up and talk and use that in my experience and that to input, and he captures that, and then he creates the programs around it.
I mean, those people that consult like this lady, I think that a lot of the average public don't realize the amount of usage of the esoteric wisdom that the corporations are using, and even the elites, and they always have been. I mean, if you think in movies, there's always been the oracles that the kings consult, or the high priests or priestesses, and that's a real part of this planet, and they integrate it, right? They pay the money, they do whatever they need to do, and then they have to integrate it. I mean, if you're paying $100,000 for that information, then you definitely integrate it. We just kind of get it for free on here by Chris, or come across it in the aisle in the grocery store at a horoscope, and we don't value it as much as it really should be valued.
Yeah, because it is too accessible, but this is where our system's set up. It's like when people are watching you right now, it's just the front end. It's like the sticker, the advertisement. But as they start to come through the door, the 28-day reset, they start learning parts of the philosophy, the lifestyle artist program, more parts of the philosophy, level 2, more parts. Then the only way to embody something, or to really learn something, is to teach it. And if you're not teaching it, it doesn't matter how much you've acquired, you haven't quite got it. And this is why now our whole thing is to turn around. They start teaching it, and they get paid for it. But then after a while, they cross over and say, hey, I just want to be with you guys. And that's the fun part, actually, because as soon as the money was taken out of this for me, like I don't have a bank account. Sorry, I do have a bank account right now that has minus $14 in it. When I go back to Canada, I'm shutting down. I forgot to shut it down. But I don't carry a license. I don't carry a wallet. The only thing I have is a passport and a birth certificate. It's a very, very different lifestyle, because anytime I want to go get something, I have to ask somebody to come with me. Yeah, and it's like, so it also continually makes me respectful of other people's time and humble, because I can't just go, I'm going to go do this myself. Everybody screw off. I'm like, if I get mad and I want to go do it myself, I have to say, hey, you want to come with me, be mad?
We need this thing. That's interesting. So where does that, like, is that you don't even consider the long-term implications of that,
What
right?
I do.
You're
I do. I don't think anybody's going to have it in 5 to 7 years. I don't think everybody will have a license. Nobody give a shit. We didn't used to have a license. You know, when my mom was born, they were selling social security numbers. Like, hey, come get this. If you get this, we'll give you some money. Because once you have a social, you know this, the straw man thing, right? Once you get a social security number, they actually kill the individual legally, and they incorporate a corporation under your name so that they can tax you. They can treat you under the law of the land. You've heard of that stuff, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So we're just going back to the way we were. I mean, why do I have to have a license to drive a car? Like, honestly, like, why? Like, who grants somebody the authority to do that? And I know there's a lot of people that are like, you need it for order. You need it. Well, go to India. There's a lot more order. I mean, it looks disorderly, but they have literally 10 times less accidents than we have here with all of our order.
their streets are chaotic.
Yeah.
It's like a ordered
Nobody has
chaos.
access. Everybody's present, everybody drives, and the majority of people don't have licenses.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. The trees don't have driver's licenses, you know, the animals don't, and this whole entire planet is operating in symbiosis without what we thought was going to make everything better. And it's just the question is like, how do we get to the place where there's harmony as opposed to law and order? Because it's
Yeah, so
harmony.
what is better? That's the question. I can't find now that because it comes down to the human body. There's not one measure of the human body that is better today than it was 50 to 75 years ago. How can we say we're better? We don't live longer. We have way more illness, mental, physical. When I was a kid, I went to school. Nobody had allergies, even nut allergies. There was no EpiPens in the school when I was a kid. They didn't have anxiety and depression. It, it did not exist. I mean, it in very mild cases back, if you go back 45 years ago, 50 years ago, very mild cases it existed. But I started going to school over 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean the answer is that we have to all create the new system then, right? And we create it just with our daily actions, our daily thoughts, our emotions, make sure that we're present and aware and choosing the greatest version of ourselves in every single moment. On an individual level, that's what we're doing. But do we as a species need to pay attention what everybody else is doing, or do we just?
We used to intuitively know. Like I was part of the generation. I am sorry. I'm going to apologize to everybody in the world right now. I was part of the generation that brought you cell phones in the late 80s when they were 20 grand a piece. I was a guy selling them to you. And I remember the day that I remember exactly where it was because I used to listen to cassette tapes for you younger generation. That's where you had to turn it with a pen. I used to listen to cassette tapes in my car to educate myself, or I'd have quiet time. And I used to think about things. And I remember the day when I thought that the cell phone, I put it in my car and I'm talking to everybody. I thought, this is really cool. I can get all this business done. I remember the day when I thought, this ain't good. Something's wrong about this. I remember exactly where it was. I could tell you the exact spot on a bridge I was when I was driving over. And because it started to dumb us down, it took away natural ability. Like when I grew up, I had a phone at my home and there was one at work, but where I worked, I wasn't a knowledge worker, so I didn't have my own phone. I worked at Safeway. So there was one phone in a Safeway, and if I got a call, it was an emergency. If it was an emergency, I'd have an emergency after the call. And so if someone was trying to call me, sometimes it'd be a couple of days. They weren't freaking out. But why weren't they freaking out? I mean, now you text somebody, they don't answer you back in 4 hours. Like, hey, what's wrong with Rob? Like, how
Yeah.
come he hasn't answered?
Yeah.
But
And our memories.
we intuitively knew that everything was okay.
Yeah. But just, yeah. Our memory was also completely different. People think like books and even writing. So the human being has always been devolving away from our natural capacity because of new technology. And the more technology comes in, the more we rely on the technology, the less we rely on ourselves. But yeah, we're losing abilities to sense the environment around us. And so again, like, is the answer to keep our children away from this stuff, like outside in the
Like, I do believe that, if you take a look at the top leaders in the world, their children don't use technology. When was the last time you seen one of the royalty carrying cell phones? When was the last time you seen sheikhs and kings and princes using cell phones? Outside of an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, even even somebody showed me a picture of Bill Gates on a phone. It's like there's a point where if I have to be that connected, it's like they used to say in my day, the more keys that you have on your ring, the lower down the chain you are. Like if you have a mitt full of keys, that means you're pretty low totem pole. Well, I care. We're in media, which seems like a contradictory of terms, but what we're doing is we're creating a path, and you're part of that path. I mean, you hosting for me on Monday was a proof of concept. That means, do you still hold an audience? Do people still find value? Do I have to be there? And the answer was, do I have to be there? And the answer is no. Because at some point, I'm there for the audience right now, but our internal audience is getting so big. Like by next year, our internal audience is tens of millions of people. So I can talk to them. I don't have to talk out there, and I have different ways to do that. It means I need less communications, less technology. And the people, and so what we're providing is we're moving away from that and using technology in a different way, organizing it in a different way, but not being constricted by technology, not having to use it every day, not having to be tied at the hip with it.
I really think that I even made myself not optimal health because I was spending way too much time in front of technology. I never get sick like ever in my life. The last time was like 15 years ago when I was competing in CrossFit and I got pneumonia because I was training.
And were you sick?
Yeah,
because sickness is a condition that leads to death. So what you were doing is right after we got back, because we all went through it too. Our whole team went through it, but we don't have a lot of the physical symptoms anymore. After Joshua Tree, we all detoxed. But for us, the detox is more perceptual, emotional today. But a couple people on our team detox physically. I see you guys, and you guys detoxed at the exact same time our team did.
Yeah, so that's what I mean is that, all right, so I'm not going to call it sickness, but the detox that I had 10-ish years ago, it was a little bit more than that, was from overtraining physically while competing in CrossFit. And that was pretty much the last time I was down in a bed for several days. And this time was because I was launching a podcast and I was spending all day till like 11 p.m., 12 p.m. at night in front of 3 computer screens, which I have right in front of me, and studio lights, just editing all day long. So it was almost like I was detoxing from overloading technology.
You were, but if you think about it in the grand scale of things, you're evolving. So anything that doesn't meet your frequency has to come out of your body. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got that little bump on my finger today.
Yeah.
And these ones here, I've been showing them as they came up in my bodies. They came up all over my body in different spots and on the outside of the foot there. And that, I mean, that's
pretty good balance.
Oh yeah.
Just Just pointing that out so everybody understands how difficult that is. If anybody wants to try that out, what he just did.
Yeah. So what I've been noticing is that I've been like, I'll have like my whole body would in areas like my meridians would break out in those little bumps, which is herpes virus. It's chickenpox. But it's getting rid of what was there, because how is it that, chickenpox, or, for example, which is all herpes virus at the end, how is it that every single person on the planet, has like Epstein-Barr? Like, how is it possible that every single genetic profile has the same disease? I'm like, that's because somebody engineered it. There's no other way it could happen. And we all just accept it. Like, oh, everybody has it. Oh, that's just the way it is. I'm like, no, we have different biology, different blood types. We have different genetics. There's no physical way that could happen. It would, the body would adapt at certain points. Some of the genomes would adapt to not get it, but everybody has Epstein-Barr. That means that because we're born into this. These genetics are programmed into our nervous system, and what's happening is we start to detox as they come out.
That's nuts. So you are, so that's chickenpox. That's basically coming out.
Yep.
It's like the vibrational signature.
And I take photos and videos of it and share it with everybody, because I want them, when they have it, so they don't run to the doctor and go, oh my God, I got something, I'll get rid of it. It's because we've been suppressing these things forever without ever, it's a viral load. That viral load has information. Viruses are not bad for us. We have 380 trillion viruses in us. We have 50 trillion cells, 380 trillion viruses. That means we have viruses that have viruses that have viruses that have viruses. So we have more viruses in us than we have cells.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got
a lot of us that
we got bacteria that have bacteria that have bacteria.
Yeah. Exactly.
So this is where I say to people, it's the virome and our biome. And the virome and the biome, our biome and our virome determine how we perceive. What we are is we have 10% of our cells are human. So we are a government over all of these. We're 70% water, 25% silica sand, 5% bacteria, viruses, parasites. So we have 10% of those cells are human cells, and you know that you just go look at Monsanto's research. That's how they got Roundup through. They said it doesn't affect human cells. You're right, but only 10% of us are human. Right. So the way we perceive the world, like when Epstein-Barr is over 1,200, people they'll go, I don't feel safe, I don't feel heard. They feel threat, they go anger, they go wild. And people out there hearing this, if you ever had an incident or people around you had one where they haven't been drinking or they've had one or two drinks and they go completely apeshit, off the walls, and they have to apologize to everybody the next day, and they go, I don't know what got into me, it just wasn't me. Most people have either done that one or two times in their life, so they've had somebody around them. So what is the mechanism that makes that happen? Well, I have a girl coming to retreat this next week who was part of 3-patient study that I had that taught me about Epstein-Barr. And I had the first one was a CNN war reporter. It was at 3 wars and reported there. And she threatened to kill us. And I'm like, she's a really, really nice girl. And I'm like, hey, listen, I like you. And I know that this is something going on, but I can't take you as a patient anymore, right? Because my staff are scared. And then I had another person repeat the same behavior, and then a third person, and I'm like, there's got to be more to this. I'm a puzzle guy. So I put up all their tests, all their notes, all their lab work, and I found similarities. And I'm like, oh, this one's similar. And then I looked around in my life, and I started looking for those similarities. Epstein-Barr over 1,200. When it's active, people will have these absolute fits where they no longer are in control of their body. And so in other words, we see the world a certain way. If your Epstein-Barr is over 1,200, you're going to see the world through the eyes of danger, fear, and threat to you. You're not being heard. You're not safe. And you're going to act on it in an extreme way. Because where Epstein-Barr, the viral load itself, it comes out. It lives in the liver, the spleen and the kidneys, and it comes out and it feeds. But what does it feed on? Adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, testosterone. And basically, it feeds on this rage energy. And so it will create rage inside of you so it can get its feeding. But it can only come out when your immune system's low. And I started to realize that because if I change my biome, I'm happier. You know, you get weight lighter all the time. If I give my body the right bacteria, my serotonin, my dopamine, my oxytocin up, I'm happier. I think better. I have more energy and all this. Well, the same is on the negative side too. So if I'm having negative thoughts and if I'm having fear and anxiety and depression, that also means that that's also controlled by bacteria and viruses. And we're perceiving it. We don't have those emotions up here.
Right. I mean, so if our physical body is made up of a bunch of different entities, I mean, viruses aren't technically living, right? But let's call them entities. Then I wonder if our aura, our non-physical body, is also more than just like a thing, but it's a collection of entities.
It is, absolutely. That's how we have. So that's where you see me point out those pictures of my doppel-gangers, and then the pictures of then I have of people that have the exact same astrology as me, and they act the same, look the same. I just think they're just basically, you call it timeline shifts, or you call it realities. It's a part of me, the same me. I have these people, all these 29 degrees. They have the exact same astrology as me. And when I go through a change, guess what they do? They go through the exact same change, but in a slightly different way. I mean, what explains that? Yeah, of course, we have other energies that are, but we always think of them as something evil. But they're contributory to who I am today. They all make me who I am today. So not evil. You know, darkness isn't evil. It's darkness. And without darkness, we can't have light. But we're like, oh, that's bad. Or like we say emotions. Anger, sadness, grief, those are bad emotions. And I want the good ones. And I'm like, wait a second here. The only reason those are good is because those other ones exist.
Yeah. You need that anger and pride that gets you into action. That makes you stand up and act. And it's necessary for that energy to flow through those emotions in order to get up for you to experience anything else in the elevated emotions. Like it comes through the same channel, starting with red as we started this conversation.
There you go. Now you're down to dominant frequencies or contributory frequencies. And then we know that certain bacteria and certain light and hormones are created in our body, are triggered by frequencies of light. So that was my revelation today about the aura itself. It's like,
and light comes to us all encompassing. It doesn't come to us separated naturally.
What is yellow? That is your emotions. That's your solar plexus. That's why we emote and we move through here. This leads us around.
Yeah, that's what takes us into something.
Yeah. I always say emotions are like a mountain river. They're beautiful when you're watching them from the shore, but if you're in that river, it sure sucks. People go, no, love, I want love. And I'm like, a girl in love won't see that the person that she's with is going to hurt her. But a girl in fear won't see the person that she's with is going to help her, or vice versa, guy. I'm just using it as a way of saying it. So the idea is when we're in emotions, we're not present. And when we're present, we are observing ourselves. That means that we step outside the body and our presence, our consciousness sits in our entropic field. We're observing ourselves. That means we're observing the emotions and the reactions rise and fall. That's when we are with our creator, because our creator is up here, not in the stubby, dense human part of us. The human is like a stubby toe on the consciousness of mankind. You think about it, because you can't see, we can't perceive the light, right? So with our eyes, we can't. We put on equipment, we can perceive it, we measure it. We can measure your chakras. We can measure the light around you, but we don't see it. Animals see it. Different animals see different versions of it. But so basically, all we see is the lowest frequency of us, which is the human being, the stub of the human experience, the toe, the big toe. So we're just a big toe for the human experience. That's why we get stubbed all the time. Oh, shit. Oh.
No, when we come into the body and that's all we're doing and we're forgetting the other perspective, that is what life feels like.
Yeah.
It's dense, it's slow, it's restricted. And there's lots of people that have near-death experiences where that they say the same thing. They say that wherever they go in those moments where their heart stops for a few moments is that this reality is such a poor representation of the other place. Right. They say that other place, everything's brighter, more vibrant. The feelings are we can't even imagine them here.
So when you do a fascial maneuver, what's the first thing that people notice consciously? They notice that everything looks brighter. So basically what we're saying is, as we reduce stress, we move into our field, things get brighter. The longer we do that, we habituate the field, then we're more present over longer periods of time. If we're present over longer periods of time, then that becomes our status, our benchmark, and then we can go from there. Because you got to get to the peak to see the next peak.
I mean, and you're even twisted up. So you're putting yourself in these positions where it's easy to make a choice of how you're perceiving yourself in that position.
Yeah. Yeah, fascial maneuvers is a fetal position.
Right.
Yeah, and what I find is that the human body, the human fluid adaptive biological computing system is so complex. One of the most complex ways, like all language came from the origin of energy, then it came into grunts and groans, and then it came into movement, and then grunts and groans. So movement first, and then you don't understand? So basically all communication came from body language. So that's why I'm really good at helping people, because I understand body language, the real language of body.
I was watching you with the fighter woman yesterday. I don't know if it was done yesterday, but it was a post.
Yeah, it was done
on
a couple weeks ago, but yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking that because you're just like moving the body and saying this is grief and this is this side of the body, and yeah, that's the body keeps the score, as they say.
Yeah, it does. So Ra, it's been a great talk. I'm gonna buzz off early today because we're gonna go to the falls at Montezuma.
Dang.
And I have a Chris Matecki, first time he's ever done it. I got a whole bunch of 29 degrees. I've been collecting all over the world. He's doing a private meeting I'm just waiting to see what happens, man. I mean, I feel like there's going to be like some sort of portal open or something's going to blow up.
He's going to talk to all yourselves?
Yeah, all the versions of myself. And, and it's funny because the Sagittarius they all in one way look like me.
Yeah.
And they all the Sagittarius are women, but they're all female versions of me.
Amazing. Well, that's going to be a good time. And yeah, so I'll let you say bye to everybody. I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
And take care.
Great talk today. This was fantastic.
Amazing.